One American economic commentator encapsulated the prevailing sentiment. Peter Navarro was, in some respects, regarded as the dumbest economist, yet he was also undeniably one of the most influential figures in shaping U.S. economic policy during this turbulent period. A sweeping trade policy shift aimed at protecting American industry has left deep marks on both the global economy and domestic markets. A dramatic declaration of national emergency on April 2 set in motion a series of tariff measures designed to impose a 10% tariff on all trading partners as early as April 5, with even steeper rates planned for nations that ran the largest trade deficits with the United States by April 9. The impact was immediate and severe. Within 2 trading days, American financial markets saw a staggering loss of at least $6.6 trillion in market capitalization. Technology giants, including Tesla and Apple, suffered acute losses as investor sentiment plummeted, culminating in a historic downturn on April 7, when global indices tumbled on what would later be called Black Monday. Amid the market chaos, the world's richest entrepreneur, Elon Musk, could no longer remain silent. On April 5, via his social media channels, Musk directed sharp criticism toward Peter Navarro, Trump's Harvard-educated economic advisor. Musk's posts were not subtle. In one, he derided Navarro by insisting that Navarro has built nothing, and in another, he mockingly suggested that possessing a PhD in economics from Harvard was more of a curse than a blessing. These public jabs deepened the controversy, pitting a celebrated business magnate against an influential yet widely contested member of Trump's economic inner circle. As one of the chief architects behind these sweeping tariff policies, Navarro's journey from modest beginnings to becoming a key economic strategist in Washington is a study in resilience, ambition, and controversy. His uncompromising stance on trade, combined with his combative persona and unyielding advocacy for American manufacturing, has made him both a symbol of hope for many blue-collar workers and a lightning rod for criticism from mainstream economists and political opponents alike. Navarro's early life was marked by hardship and perseverance. Born in 1949 in Cambridge, Massachusetts, a city synonymous with academic excellence and home to Harvard University, he experienced personal challenges from a young age. When Navarro was just 10 years old, his parents divorced, and he was raised by his mother alongside his younger brother. Their modest living conditions, frequently confined to a small apartment, instilled in him a sense of self-reliance that would later define his approach to economic policy. Despite these early struggles, Navarro's academic prowess shone brightly. Awarded a full scholarship to Tufts University, he demonstrated an aptitude for learning that set him on an upward trajectory. His experiences extended beyond the classroom when he joined the Peace Corps and spent 4 formative years in Thailand, a period that broadened his international perspective and ignited his lifelong interest in economic policy. After returning to the United States, Navarro continued his academic pursuits at Harvard University, where he earned a PhD in economics under the guidance of distinguished scholars. His academic career led him to several teaching positions in California, culminating in a tenured role at the University of California, Irvine. Although he became known among his students as an engaging and popular professor, many of his academic peers criticized his work for lacking methodological rigor and for the ideological slant that would later come to define his public policy stance. Navarro's early forays into politics were marked by repeated attempts to enter elected office. In 1992, he ran as an independent candidate for mayor of San Diego, a campaign that ended in a resounding defeat, leaving him with significant debt and personal setbacks, including the dissolution of his marriage as his wife struggled with the pressures of a highly visible campaign. These early political defeats, though painful, provided Navarro with crucial insights into American political dynamics and the disconnect between the promises of globalization and the harsh realities faced by working-class citizens. Undeterred, he continued to seek office, running on various tickets through the 1990s. Although electoral success eluded him, these experiences would later inform his fervent advocacy for policies aimed at protecting domestic jobs and industries. A critical turning point in Navarro's ideological development occurred in 2001 with China's accession to the World Trade Organization. As China rapidly integrated into the global economy and expanded its industrial base, Navarro's perspective shifted dramatically. He came to see the surge of low-cost imports and the competitive practices of emerging economies as direct threats to American manufacturing and the livelihoods of workers. This transformation marked a departure from his earlier academic caution against protectionism. Over time, he became convinced that the challenges facing American industry were not the result of free market forces alone, but were exacerbated by policies that allowed foreign competitors to gain an unfair advantage. Throughout his extensive body of work, Navarro repeatedly emphasized that the decline of American manufacturing was not an inevitable consequence of global market forces. Rather, he argued, it was the result of policies that allowed foreign competitors to secure an unfair advantage. His publications, including The Provocative Death by China and The Coming China Conflict, presented detailed analyses of how practices such as currency manipulation, industrial subsidies, and predatory pricing contributed to the erosion of domestic industry. It was within these pages that Navarro firmly established his belief that decisive action, in the form of a trade war against foreign competitors, was necessary to reclaim America's lost industrial might. An additional and particularly controversial element emerged in connection with his work during this period. Investigations later revealed that in the years between 2006 and 2011, as Navarro was publishing titles like The Coming China Conflict and Death by China that promoted a threat narrative and advocated for initiating a trade war, he repeatedly cited the opinions of an economist named Ron Vara as corroboration for his arguments. Subsequent investigations by journalists and scholars uncovered that Ron Vara was a completely fictitious character persona created by Navarro himself. In truth, Ron Vara was simply an anagram of Navarro's surname. When questioned by the media, Navarro dismissed this revelation as nothing more than an offhand joke designed to entertain, though it became clear that he was aware his theoretical claims lacked sufficient empirical support. By incorporating the fabricated viewpoints of Ron Vara, Navarro sought to lend an impression of external validation to his arguments, masking the fact that the ideas were essentially his own unsubstantiated conjectures. The resonance of Navarro's message found fertile ground in an America disillusioned by decades of economic change. As offshoring and globalization took hold, many workers and citizens felt that the promises of free trade had failed to deliver on the promise of shared prosperity. Economic dislocation and job losses among the middle and working classes fueled a growing demand for protectionist policies that would prioritize domestic interests. Against this backdrop, Navarro's explicit call for measures such as Buy American, Hire American struck a deep chord. His argument was straightforward: to reestablish the nation's manufacturing base, the United States needed to confront the impacts of what he saw as an unfair trading system that benefited foreign nations at the expense of American workers. The turning point in Navarro's political career came in 2016. In the midst of a fiercely contested presidential campaign, Jared Kushner, the son-in-law of then-candidate Donald Trump, discovered Navarro's book Death by China while browsing an online retailer. The book's uncompromising critique of foreign trade practices and its advocacy for radical protective measures resonated with the burgeoning America First sentiment. In a brief telephone conversation, Navarro was recruited to join Trump's campaign team, a move that catapulted him from the fringes of academic and political debate into the heart of American policymaking. Following President Trump's electoral victory, Navarro's influence within the administration grew rapidly. In 2017, he was appointed director of the White House National Trade Council, where he became the principal architect of a sweeping series of trade policy shifts. One of his earliest and most audacious moves was to advocate for tariffs on imported steel and aluminum, a policy aimed at countering what he viewed as the exploitation of American industry by foreign competitors. This initiative not only signaled a break from decades of free trade orthodoxy but also set the stage for further aggressive tariff measures that would soon reverberate across the U.S. economy. Navarro's tenure in the White House was marked by an unwavering commitment to protectionism and an aggressive, sometimes combative approach to policymaking. In public appearances and media interviews, he insisted that tariffs were not merely instruments of economic policy but powerful tools for safeguarding American prosperity. At one point, he described tariffs as a gift from God, a rhetorical flourish that underscored his belief that punitive trade measures were essential to correcting long-standing imbalances. In 2018, Navarro led a major initiative to impose tariffs on Chinese imports valued at $360 billion, while simultaneously advocating for additional tariffs on products such as steel and aluminum under the guise of protecting national security. These policies were defended on the grounds that they would force foreign competitors to engage with America on its terms, thereby leveling the playing field for domestic manufacturers. Navarro's aggressive tariff strategy was not without controversy. His proposals sparked fierce debates among economists, industry experts, and policymakers. Critics warned that such measures could trigger a vicious cycle of retaliatory tariffs, disrupting global supply chains and ultimately harming American consumers through increased prices and supply shortages. Industry associations, such as the American Semiconductor Industry Association, argued that tariffs had not succeeded in stimulating domestic production in key sectors and instead had led to significant raw material shortages. Research from respected institutions like the Brookings Institution suggested that unilateral tariff measures offered little strategic leverage in international trade negotiations and might even undermine the very national security they were purported to protect. Despite these criticisms, Navarro's protectionist message resonated strongly with many Americans, particularly among blue-collar workers who had been adversely affected by offshoring and globalization. For these citizens, his assertive defense of domestic manufacturing and his unwavering insistence on rebalancing the trade deficit were seen as a long-overdue corrective to decades of economic policy that had seemingly prioritized global competition over national well-being. His call to buy American, hire American became a rallying cry, symbolizing both a desire to reclaim lost jobs and a broader yearning for a resurgence of American industrial might. The shifting dynamics of American politics further elevated Navarro's profile. In the wake of the contentious 2020 presidential election, which resulted in a dramatic power transition with the victory of President Biden, Navarro emerged as one of the staunchest defenders of the previous administration's trade policies. In a move that intensified the national debate, he released the so-called Navarro Report, a document that supported claims of electoral fraud and, according to some analysts, contributed to the unrest witnessed on Capitol Hill on January 6. His steadfast refusal to comply with congressional subpoenas related to these events resulted in an indictment for contempt of Congress, and by March 2024, Navarro was sentenced to serve time in prison. This development marked one of the most dramatic and controversial moments in a career already characterized by intense political battles. However, the saga did not end with his incarceration. In an astonishing turnaround, Navarro was released in July 2024 and quickly rejoined the Trump team. His rapid return to political life and subsequent reappointment as the senior trade and manufacturing advisor underscored both the enduring appeal of his protectionist ideology and the deep ideological divisions that continue to shape American politics. Even as widespread protests broke out across the country spurred by concerns over the economic impact of the renewed tariff measures, Navarro remained steadfast in his commitment to policies designed to reinvigorate domestic manufacturing. Prominent U.S. research institutions warned that the cumulative effect of the tariff war could potentially add an average of $5,200 annually to household expenditures, with low-income families likely to be the most affected by such increases. The journey of Peter Navarro is, in many ways, a microcosm of the broader struggles and debates surrounding American trade policy in the modern era. His life story, from a challenging childhood in Cambridge to an illustrious academic career, and ultimately a turbulent spell in the heart of national politics, encapsulates the contradictions and complexities inherent in the pursuit of economic revival. Navarro's early experiences of personal hardship and political defeat instilled in him a resolve to champion the cause of American workers and ambition that later evolved into a full-scale defense of protectionist policies. His rhetoric, which sharply denounced the perceived economic injustices wrought by unfettered globalization, resonated with many who felt that their opportunities had been systematically eroded by the forces of international competition. In his extensive body of work, Navarro repeatedly emphasized that the decline of American manufacturing was not simply an inevitable consequence of global economic shifts, but a direct result of policies that had allowed foreign competitors to gain an unfair advantage. His publications, including The Provocative Death by China and The Coming China Conflict, are filled with detailed analyses of how foreign trade practices ranging from currency manipulation to industrial subsidies had contributed to the hollowing out of domestic industry. Over time, his message evolved from a caution against protectionism to an unapologetic call for aggressive measures designed to reassert American economic sovereignty. For Navarro, the imposition of punitive tariffs was not only an economic necessity but a moral imperative, a means to reclaim what he believed was rightfully the nation's. Under the Trump administration, Navarro's ideas were put to the test. As director of the White House National Trade Council, he became the driving force behind a radical reorientation of U.S. trade policy. His role was central to the administration's decisions to withdraw from multilateral trade agreements such as the Trans-Pacific Partnership and to renegotiate existing accords, including transforming the North American Free Trade Agreement into the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement. In every instance, the objective was to rebalance the terms of trade in favor of American industry, thereby ensuring that domestic jobs and enterprises received preferential treatment in an increasingly competitive global marketplace. Navarro's tenure was characterized by a series of high-profile disputes and contentious public exchanges. Known for his combative style, he frequently clashed with other high-ranking officials within the administration, engaging in public disputes with figures such as the Secretary of Commerce and the Treasury Secretary. Even President Trump, though he often expressed admiration for Navarro's tenacity, noted that while Peter was always ready to fight, sometimes achieving the desired outcome required winning smaller battles first. This unyielding determination, while earning him the support of many who had been left behind by globalization, also contributed to significant internal friction within the government. For many American workers and citizens, Navarro's impassioned rhetoric and unrelenting defense of domestic industry were seen as a beacon of hope in an era marked by rapid economic transformation. His message was clear: to restore American prosperity, the nation had to confront the challenges posed by global competition head-on. The rallying cry of "Buy American, Hire American" came to symbolize a broader call for economic self-reliance, an appeal to a sense of national pride and the belief that by protecting domestic industries, America could secure its long-term economic future. Yet, as the debate over trade policy continues to evolve, Navarro's legacy remains a subject of intense controversy. His detractors argue that his aggressive tariff measures have not only provoked retaliatory actions from key trading partners, but have also risked destabilizing intricate global supply chains that many American companies rely on. The resulting increase in costs, particularly in critical sectors such as semiconductors and technology, has raised concerns about the long-term viability of his protectionist approach. Analysts from leading research institutions have cautioned that while the short-term benefits of safeguarding American industry may be tangible, the broader consequences such as reduced international collaboration and increased consumer prices could ultimately outweigh these gains. Throughout his career, Peter Navarro has been both celebrated as a champion of American manufacturing and castigated as a figure whose theories are overly simplistic and potentially damaging to broader economic interests. His personal trajectory from a struggling youth in Cambridge to a pivotal policymaker in Washington embodies the tensions inherent in a nation grappling with the forces of globalization. His insistence that aggressive tariff measures are the key to reviving American industry reflects a deeply held belief in the primacy of national self-interest, yet it also underscores the challenges of reconciling domestic policy with the realities of an interconnected global economy. As the nation moves forward, the debate over trade policy and the protection of domestic industry continues to be one of the most divisive and enduring questions in American economic discourse. Navarro's policies, controversial as they are, have undeniably reshaped the landscape of American trade and sparked discussions that will likely influence policy decisions for years to come. The balance between safeguarding domestic jobs and maintaining a robust, dynamic international trade system remains a delicate Onian equilibrium that Navarro's tenure has brought into sharp focus. In summary, The evolution of Peter Navarro's career from his early academic promise and repeated electoral setbacks to his transformation into a staunch advocate for aggressive tariff measures provides a comprehensive portrait of a man whose life mirrors the broader challenges facing American economic policy. His unwavering commitment to the principle that protecting domestic industry is paramount has defined his approach to trade policy, a stance that has both galvanized support among those who feel left behind by globalization and provoked vehement criticism from others who warn of unintended economic consequences. The debates he has sparked over the merits and drawbacks of protectionism continue to resonate deeply within American society, reflecting the complex interplay between national ambition and global interdependence. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel.